Almost forgot to press the go button there. I was getting too carried away with the chat. Hello, yes, welcome to CodeZone. It's CodeZone time again, and we're going to have a bit of a chilled out CodeZone this time because the last one was particularly intense. It was a lot of fun towards the end, but also I've been working pretty hard since then. I've added lots of new features, so I want to sort of go through those briefly, but primarily tonight I want to test the user experience so far. That doesn't mean just sort of regurgitating everything we've done over the last few weeks. I'm actually going to create a list of things that I think are not quite working out as well as I would like them to be, not quite as fluid. Do things take too many clicks? Do we need a particular tool or a shortcut or something like that in order to do that? Now, yes, I'll talk through some of the changes, and then we're going to start trying to create some assets, actually trying to use the tool in Anger to see is it working for us. So let's have a look. Yes, we've got in the chat, not too many people in the chat at the moment. We've got Bixie, the author of the theme tune, the composer of the theme tune, I should say, Standard Int, and myself. It appears we've been chatting away for quite some time, and we've concluded that Final Fantasy 13 is no good, which is good. Luke Powell, 91, hello. What has changed? Well, I went ahead and started adding lots of Lua tools. If you remember at the end of the last episode, we sort of quickly hacked in some tooling to try and show the power of external scripting languages in our editor. This time, I got carried away with it, and I started adding lots and lots of tools. In fact, I do my Lua editing in Visual Studio Code, which is disgusting, I know. But it's far better than the Lua editor built into Visual Studio. And so I added some extra properties to some of the scripts. So let's take, for example, you want to paint something like a rectangle. So far, what we've seen is basically we click the mouse, and we drag it around, and it just draws things where we expected to draw them. And we showed a quick demonstration that we could change the width of the brush. However, most tools will actually have a sequence of events that are applied to them. And so I thought what we could do is have the Lua script sort of be sensitive to that staging. So for example, placing a rectangle, you would typically move the mouse around, nothing would happen, but you would press once, click with the mouse button left, and you'd place the top corner of the rectangle, and then you would drag it, or you just move it and then click again, or release the mouse, and you end up placing the bottom right. And in between those stages, you sort of see a preview of what the rectangle will look like. So I've added the idea that we should actually have something called stages as part of our Lua script. And so I have some functions, which by default, the staging, by the way, is entirely contained within the Lua script. The actual C++ host program doesn't know anything about this. This is all just Lua. All it knows is that on mouse clicks, it needs to call this on stage forward, and we've got sort of escape and abort routines and things like that to do. Now, if the tool is ready to paint something in our tile environment, it returns a 1 at that particular instance. So we can see first click, this would have been called, the current stage would record where the top left of the rectangle is, we would then advance the stage. But we don't paint anything. So, okay, we're still just on that stage at the moment, we're in stage 0. But we've clicked and moved to stage 1. Now, we still have our construct brush function, but of course this is also then sensitive to what stages there are. I've created a draw function inside the construct brush just to tidy up all of this code. It's a bit tidy, so it looks a lot tidier now. So, because we wanted to give us a preview brush, we needed to output all of the information for the rectangle, as it was doing before. And that's exactly what's happening here. So if we're not in any stages, just draw the single cell that's underneath your mouse, because you want to be able to see where you're drawing. But if you're in this stage where you've not quite drawn the rectangle, but you're laying it out, we want to get the bottom right of it. We then want to allow the user to have rectangle drawing in all different directions, because that's actually quite a powerful usability tool. It's no good always going from top left to bottom right. Sometimes we want to draw it backwards, upside down, whatever. And then we just simply fill out the rectangle. So here we can see we're iterating through X and Y over the area of the rectangle, and we're drawing the cells. I have an extra tool which allows me to just draw the outline of the rectangle, because that could be quite useful too. So that's one of these tool properties that we set up at the start. Now, one of the reasons I've moved to sort of a single draw routine to draw the particular tile is the draw routine itself is sensitive to the shape of the brush in the static tile source that we've chosen. So you can actually draw rectangles using all sorts of interesting, weird shapes, and we'll demonstrate some of these things now, I think. Let's just quickly say hello to people in the chat. So Rosso, hello. Speedy, hello. Good to see you here. Not Vim, no. I don't really like Visual Studio Code. It's very slow, I find, to start at least. Pliskit, hello. Alta, hello. Good to see you all. Good. So tonight's going to be a lot more sort of interacting with the tool and talking about some of the things that we've added, but I'm also going to keep some notes as we go along. So in Visual Studio, I've got my design document, which is a little bit sparse, I'll be honest, which we will try and populate with ideas. And by all means, I think perhaps the community should actually chip in as well. If they see sort of problems or things that we should record, we'll start sticking them in here. Mentioned before, this is a Markdown editor that's built into Visual Studio, so you can actually just you can preview it there, and it comes up like a nice page. And when I start to sort of put this code online, and ultimately it will end up there, perhaps this document can go with it, and we can, as a community, start to work on some of the issues. Seago, hello. Good. So let's just launch the application and let's have a look at how that rectangle tool might have worked. It sounds really boring, I know. Oh, we're going to be pestered by this green rectangle. That's something I'm in the middle of. And as you can see, I've still not quite fixed the appearance of these icons. So let's add that to our feature list of things to fix. So tool icons are not refreshed accurately. Because those that are turning up now, I'm not in coding mood tonight. We're in testing mood tonight. So let's carry on. I think I will maximize. So if I put this up here and drag that out to there, hopefully we're going to keep running with this window. It just gives us a little bit more screen real estate to play with. And I'm quite annoyed that I have to keep starting this up. So startup window location set to 3030, which those who are familiar with the depths of the tombs of OLC lore will understand why 3030 is an important number. So we'll set that up to there, and we'll also set the area size as well. So that's another thing that we want to add in. Right. We've got nothing in this workspace. It is completely blank to start with. Magetsup, hello. You're not first today, Magetsup. In fact, you are 32nd. So, yeah, no points for you today. I'm going to load some assets to start with. And the assets I'm going to load are all from a particular RPG tile set that I purchased off Humble Bundle. The good high-quality assets, but I'm not an artist, so we may end up not really using them as intended. But let's have a look. So I want to create an asset pack. The default project already has the asset pack added to it. So let's go and add some assets. Now, see, straight away, I'm not quite happy that I can't really see what these are. So let's just make that bigger. Yeah, so these are not sort of expanding to the right size. That would be nicer if they did. So let's try looking at that. So we'll call this asset pack. Columns are too small. Let's add some assets to our asset pack. So I'm going to go to, is it this one? Tile sets? Maybe? No. I'll go back. I want something that's a bit prettier. Here we go. 2D hand-painted grassland tile sets. So let's go and add the larger version of this one here. That's pretty and colourful. Okay, so these are nice high-resolution tile map. And we'll give that a name. We'll call it Grassland. Yeah. Right, let's add another one. And we'll go up to, because I think there's additional ones here. So this is the interior. Painted interior 128, 128. So the interior of buildings. Okay. There you go, very nice. I think we were using that one in the last episode as a bit of a demonstration. So we'll call that one. Oh, hang on, that's the name of our asset pack, so I've confused myself there. We'll call that Hand Painted RPG. Is the name. Good, good, good. Yes. And we'll add one more. So the objective here is to try and use this like a real person would actually use it. Add another asset, which is actually sort of the buildings and things like that. There we go. Nice. They're not animated or anything like that, but we're going to see if we can start to build with layers and things and understand what the problems are that we might encounter. Let's have a look. Shouldn't it be the same layout it closed with? That's a good one. Yeah, okay. That is actually an annoying one. Okay, so we probably want some user layout persistence. I'm probably going to fill this full of typos. Now, that might also be per project or per user. Don't know. So, you know, well, per workspace, we'll call it. Per workspace or per user. Undecided. But yeah, I think you're right. So I don't have to drag the windows out every single time. If I press, can I swap that one around? I can. There we go. Magets got moderated the. Oh no! So oh, did we have some spam going on? Okay, that's all right. Right. Yeah, I'd have to include a reset layout. So perhaps there's some sort of layout controls, just in general, really. Preferences. Oh, Londo Spark. Thank you very much. Very kind of you. We're just doing some a bit of a chilled stream tonight. We're going to be sort of analysing and critiquing the user experience whilst looking at some of the cool new Lua stuff that I've added. So layout preferences, user preferences. They're things that we've not really added in. Different versions of... Yes, these things are different versions of Visual Studio. Yeah, I've got quite a few. I collect them. Pretty cool. Now, the old ones are worth quite a bit now. Speedy, every time you're on CodeZone. Oh, very good. Oh, please, Speedy. I'm pleased that you enjoy this bit of time. Alex, yeah. Oh, do you see planning? No. Definitely no planning. No. We don't do planning here. Thank you, Londo. Would have wanted to see some sketchy stat boosting. Sorry, I'm catching up. I've got to remember that things I've said a while back are now sort of coming back to haunt me. Right, so, okay, we've got our 3 assets. Now the next thing to do is just actually see, do these still work? So actual size, so you can see that they're actually very high resolution assets, you know, the tile-based and fit screen. Now I think fit screen might have some bugs. It seems to be okay if everything's sort of the same size. Right, we'll come back to that. Right, so each one of these asset packs I'm going to turn into a static tile source. So the first one, we'll choose the asset from the asset selection tool, which I quite like. This seems to work quite nicely. Grasslands, and this is what I need to be naming. So what this asset is. So let's call that one Grasslands, just so it's visible. There we go. And we need to set it up. So let's pull over. So I should be able to select these without them reloading the tabs, which is quite nice. If the tab's already open, it can go away and find it. Now you can see that the default tiles that I've created, they're too small. So the first thing is to set the tile size. Now I know that these happen to be 128 by 128. What gives that away? It's in the file name. But it looks like there's more tiles necessary. I don't know quite how many, presumably 16 by 16 tiles. Let's nudge these up. So this is working quite nicely. Now, I'm not too sure about the shading anymore because I think sometimes it takes away what some of the selection might be. I don't know. I'm not so sure about it. But we'll just save our progress so far in case we have a crash. So I'm going to call this one. Go to workspaces. We'll call this one trial. Right, so we've called it something, but it's actually not defined anywhere. Okay, so the file name, the project path is there, but the file name sort of doesn't exist. What does our workspace? We'll call this one trial workflow. That does actually change things up there too. Good. Right, let's add another static tile source. Try that again. In fact, we're going to be needing 2 more. So let's add 2 more. Give it the image asset. Interior, this one. Interiors. Again, we know that the where has. Why is that not loaded the image? Okay, this is. Oh, it has loaded the image. I'm just looking at the wrong one. So, interiors 128. Okay, so is that a usability flaw there, that it was allowing me to edit something that wasn't in focus in this window? I think CDesign talks to this is most of you. Most software use this familiar style UI. Might be. Yeah, I think you're right, Londo. That's kind of, you know, I guess if you're of a certain vintage, you grew up with this kind of environment, so it's easy to use. But there might be a whole generation of people now that really don't understand sort of tree controls and tables properly. That's not a discredit to them. It's just not what they're familiar with, particularly if you're used to sort of mainly interacting with touchscreen devices now. That'll be 16 by 16 again. So maybe something to note there, that I was editing something that wasn't in focus. So should I change the focus? Because I thought maybe that's useful, that you can actually select something and edit it without leaving the focus of the window. But perhaps it's not. So maybe I should change, instead of double clicking to move over to the window, that it just works on a single click. What do we think? Anything that is edited should be focus. Deboda, what are you making? Yeah, we're making the editor again. If you're editing, it should be in focus. Also, one fewer click. Okay, let's. We can have at least we can put this up for discussion and debate. And maybe I can do something like a. If you don't want to specifically bring into focus, you hold down Control and select it as something. It allows you to select it and then edit it without it. Because you might be editing some numbers based on what you can see in another window. That said, you can always split the tabs into different groups. So let's have a look. Work object under selection should be in focus in editor. Okay. So we've got one more to add, which is this one. So this is what we're talking about now. So I've selected this one, but it's not brought it into focus. But if I double click it, it does. So it's not that it's broken, it's just maybe it's not as usable. And this one is town. So again, we'll just dial in these numbers. And once we've sort of set up with the project, things can start moving a bit quicker. 15 by 16. Yeah, so that was the same. Okay, and we'll call this one exteriors. There we go. At least it's changing the thing up there. Right. Good, good, good. What does selecting it do? Multi-select is some. Well, I think multi-select becomes quite a tricky problem, because then you've got to look for property groups with the same thing. Is it desirable? Is that something that we want? It's not the end of the world to implement. It's just another thing. I guess it's kind of nice to have multiple editing, but perhaps it's a low priority. You also risk doing sort of real damage to things if you've accidentally got things selected. And like, if you ever worked with Visual Studio's properties window, why that's the same window it's been since Visual Studio 5, I don't know. But it does actually make working with things fantastically difficult. I'll show you the problem. So if I go to project and then go to the properties for the editor. So this is all great. Everybody loves this window. This is all fine until you start wanting to go to things like setting the directories up. Right. So you can. It's very difficult to firstly sort of accurately move. Because as soon as you move the selection cursor off, it zips right to the end of the other. So you can't just sort of extract one folder if it goes sort of beyond. See, if it goes beyond the edge, that's very, very difficult. And you think this is critical. This is proper fundamental project setup stuff. So it gives you this option of going to this edit box thing, and then gives you these tiny little windows to work with. So you have to move this up here, and then sort of drag the bottom out. Now there we go. It doesn't quite work all the time, so I can drag it that way, and then I have to drag it downwards. Okay, now I can see what the things are. If I wanted to manipulate them, I can. It's not too bad. But if I click on this, it doesn't actually go to that location on on the hard disk. And then, of course, if you've got these selected in various configurations, they're not always the same. So as soon as you click away, it asks you to confirm. It's a pain. Yeah, it's really, really bad. But it's been this way since forever. I don't know why they've just not chosen to improve it. Because they have actually improved quite a few other areas in this dialogue. But specifically this one drives me nuts. Because when you've got multiple configurations like this, you typically do have different paths. That's why you've got multiple configurations. Now, you might be pulling in debug versions versus release versions. It's all a bit silly, and I don't understand why it's like that. However, we shall continue. So we've set up our static tile sources. I will click Save. Let's have a look. Yeah, KISS is right, Londo. It's a motto to live by. Charnel, evening. Good evening. Use the drop. Yeah, but the Dropbox is just annoying as well. I like how the selection flickers. It was just, the whole thing's just terrible. Perhaps you could set a flag to pull the focus. So yes, maybe something in the user error in the user section, because there is no user properties at the moment really that we can actually set. Perhaps that is time to start thinking about sort of storing that information. Right, so now we want to add a construction. Now, by default, the constructions are the sort of area where we build things. So I've noticed there's a little bug down here. The toolbar that doesn't... This is... I think these two are related, by the way. Why does this not draw? It's because a toolbar does exist. It's just it's got nothing on it. Now, WX Widgets doesn't seem to handle that very well. So what it does is it draws the toolbar up here anyway, and that's what's drawing over the tools. But it's left the space for the toolbar. So the empty toolbar is being drawn by WX Widgets in the wrong place. That probably does need a bit of a deep dive to work out why. But I am using it rather unusually. I'm not holding WX Widgets responsible here. It's not that common to have sort of two toolbars at the opposite ends of a particular panel. So it probably is a bit of my fault. But nonetheless, I shall make a note that this white bar has appeared because that's where the toolbar should be, and tools that don't have a toolbar probably should just occupy that space with more visual area. So let's keep a note of that one. Construction, lower toolbar is blanked. I was looking at all the build system problems people have. Yeah, this is why I like single header solutions and single source file solutions. You don't really need a build system when you've just got one source file. Right, where was I? So, we're building a construction. At the moment, there is nothing in this construction, and we're not actually a million miles away off getting to the exciting bit. The bit that I'm actually excited to develop is the geometry stuff, but it'll be a couple of weeks yet. Let's add to our construction a static tile layer. So when we're traditionally building sort of 2D game top-down scenes, you'd have multiple layers representing background, buildings, and then things like lighting and shadows could exist on a top level layer as well. So I'm going to... I've created one layer. I don't know what size it is. Let's give it some size. Let's call it 64. Oh no, these are, well, we know our tile sizes are meant to be 128 by 128. They can be anything. Remember, see how it's done it again. Our editor is sort of a bit immune to the tile sizes, but we do want more tiles. So I'm going to do 64 by 64 tiles. So that's 4,096 tiles for that one particular layer, and we shall call this one floors, which is going to be grass, paths, that sort of thing. Now, I'd have a little notes field as well, which I don't think we've ever mentioned, but just allows you to store additional information. Might be useful for the builder. Right, I'm going to create a few more. I'm going to create another one, which is construction, add static tile, and we'll call this one walls, maybe? Walls. And again, we'll just steal this straight up, 128 by 128, and we're going to have 64 by 64 of them. Good. I don't know if we need anything else just yet. We'll stick with those two. Now, it draws from top to bottom in this case. That might be a problem. Perhaps that it needs to be more visible what the drawing order is. And I think Bixie mentioned during the week it would be useful when you add these new things that they're numbered so they don't all have the same name, particularly if you're just hacking things together. So let's add that in as a possibility. So auto number new work objects names. I don't think that's going to be all that trivial to do, but we'll see. I haven't. Oh. Johnny G, hello, thank you. Sorry, you're late. It's okay. Right. I see there's been another release of PGE for Android recently, and also I believe there was somebody running it on a Nokia or something. I've not been following along too much this last week, but we'll see. Why do I now want to try building and see how long it takes? I don't know what you're talking about. Building compilers, don't know. Stop talking about build systems. Build systems are boring. Just use Visual Studio. Right. I was here. So I think I have no current way of actually removing anything. So that is actually probably something we need. The ability to delete work objects. Now, that doesn't come without cost, simply because, let's say all of the assets in our in the entire engine are referenced via a code, and this code is the asset pack ID in text form, so it looks for the name and then the name of the asset. Now, that's great for the user. Behind the scenes, it's actually two indexes. So in this case, it's asset pack 0 and asset ID. Whatever it was in the asset town, so 2 in this case. And it goes away and finds the sort of nice text form of that. Changing these things around can fundamentally change how things are drawn elsewhere. I've not really tried that to see what happens. So for example, if I move this asset up accidentally or deleted one and didn't keep the ordering somehow consistent, then all of the levels that you've drawn would all sort of look strange because they're using the wrong tile sets. Maybe that's a problem, maybe it isn't, I don't know. I kind of like it like that because I like the idea of being able to replace a tile set, because often you'll find tile sets have tiles in common positions. And if you just wanted to redraw the whole thing without having to redraw the whole thing, you could just change the source asset. How is undo redo working currently? It isn't. Thank you, Standard In, for adding that. It's not that I've not been giving it some thought, and I think I'm going to implement it a little bit differently. My original intention was to have some sort of global Photoshop-like undo redo system, but I thought actually that would be really annoying in a dev tool. So what I'm going to have is a localized undo redo system where it's sort of the history of the work objects being changed themselves. And the work objects are things like the static tile sources and the constructions. So individually, this work object will track its own history. I think that's more useful. And it's easier to implement as well. Can't just use Visual Studio on Linux, and I'm not installing Windows just for you. Fighting talk. Right, we have then some things to play with. Let's just save our setup, and we'll select floors. So we've set things up already. Now we can start to paint some tools. Now I've created a bunch of tools, and let's have a look at some of these because we've got so far. I've added to this. We looked at the basic painting tool last time. So let's go and pick a grasslands floor or something, or let's build a village for a change. So here is a bit of grass from the grasslands, and if I go, should we pull this one over here like that, and that way we can keep our construction on the screen at the same time. Just make that window a bit smaller. There we go. So I can select tiles from, that wasn't grasslands, was it? It was in exteriors, is what we were tracking today. So I can actually put 2 there. I've got our exteriors down here and our grasslands up there, in case we wanted to borrow one from the other. So I can select this, and choosing the paintbrush, basic paint, I can start to paste those into our floor. Great, that's not that exciting, but what we'd learnt and implemented last week is I can select a couple of tiles like this, and Basic Paint will just paint those as is, but I can choose other things like Spray Paint, which has some randomization properties, so I can quickly sort of cover an area with some random things, which I think is a bit nicer. And I can adjust the width of this brush by having this tool. There we go. So I can cover very large areas very quickly. Right, all of that was handled in the Lua script. That's what last week's episode was about. I missed a bit up there. That's what we were doing last week. Now, since then, I started to sort of really play with what I think the Lua scripts will allow us to do. If you've noticed, a lot of tile maps have things like this patch here. Now, this is called a 9 patch. It's a very common way of defining sort of rectangular shapes where you want repeating borders, so buttons and windows and scroll bars and paths and things like that. And I showed on the Discord, I do actually have a 9 patch tool now. So if I set up here, I can drag that across. See, it draws like a rectangle, but it is in fact sort of using the correct borders and things from that 9 patch. Now that's entirely by the Lua script. In fact, the editing environment knows no difference between any of these categories. It's just the Lua script which is handling this in the background. Now, will you get brush shapes there as well? It depends what brush shapes really mean, right? I've got shapes, so I decided to just lift some code direct out of PGE. So let's, for example, say I had a line. Fills. I've not done any fills yet, so I can't select that one. But lines, it's just Bresnam's algorithm implemented directly with the tiles. Now, this is a nice feature that I wanted to sort of demonstrate. So I can draw the line. I've chosen the algorithm that Pixel Game Engine uses, 1, because it was easy to copy and paste, but 2, it doesn't actually have ever sort of adjacent cells at the crossover points, which I think is more desirable in this sort of environment. But let's say I choose a particular pattern of cells, which don't forget I can do in my editor. The Lua script will allow me to draw things like that, you see, which I think is quite nice. So by abstracting that draw function, you can actually create quite intricate drawing shapes, providing that there's some relative spatial positioning on your source map. In fact, if you select like the entire building, you can rather bizarrely draw with that too. It just doesn't make any sense. And recall from million years ago when we did this, it really depends what the first cell you select is. I was going to highlight that different because that's called the origin cell of the selection. So now you can see that the as we zoom in, the drawing tool is now centered around that origin cell. And this is what sort of happened when we've introduced all of this sort of functionality. We've kind of got for free now. It's the app is becoming powerful because it's quick and easy to sort of experiment with the scripts live and see what the results are. Square, circle, ellipse. Yeah, these are the basic ones I've got. So we've got line. Rectangle was the one we were looking at the script for. So let's have a look at rectangle just with a single cell to begin with. It draws a rectangle. That's not as exciting as the 9 patch, but one of the features that you've got of rectangle is you can specify just the borders as well. Now, if we weren't using tiles, and remember there's no reason we have to be using graphical tiles, the fundamental type which represents this layer can hold anything really. We could actually just use these as pixel drawing tools, and when we get around to the exporting side of things, which is also exciting, excuse me, then we could be exporting direct images. So this could actually become a fairly intricate sprite editor too, with the same tools. That's why it's the universal 2D editor of things. The idea of being able to sort of have origin cells is because quite often you want to select entire objects out of the map like this and place them down. You might not want to draw rectangles out of them, that's for sure, but you can if you want. Filled rectangles doesn't work for sort of origin cell things. Maybe that's a bug, I don't know. I don't really know what you would ever use sort of the shapes mixed with the source shapes for. Circle is quite nice, it's what you expect, and again you get the choice of filled and not filled. These are just lifted straight out of PGA, so there's a circle there, and if it's not filled it's just the outer border. Could we make a box that takes 9 cells, draws the corners in the corner of the edges? Well, that's what we've just done. That's the 9 patch. Yeah. Yeah, so that's exactly. Well, I'm going to use the 9 patch now because we've created all this clutter in our floors map. I'm going to draw some new floors. So we may as well draw over everything. So I'm going to select those there, and then I'm going to select this 9 patch and just go splat. There we are. So that has drawn over the entire map. Now we should be a bit is ambiguous the right word? Agnostic, I think, in terms of source. So if I select, this isn't a 9 patch, so that's no good. That will do weird stuff. But if I select this 9 patch, have we got a better one down here in the town? Oh yeah, so things like this rug. Just have a smaller one there. We can see it's a rug 9 patch. So that I think that's Londo is what you're asking for there. What's the best way to handle undo and redo? There's all sorts of ways. It really depends on how your application is structured. Most people will immediately adopt sort of the command pattern. Now, I'm not going to go down that route, although maybe I should have done. Since I discovered Sol and that Lua is now so easy to implement, it has crossed my mind that maybe one of these utility windows along the bottom should just be a Lua console that allows you to directly script everything in the environment. Yeah, I imagine things like wave function collapse and stuff are on the way. They're interesting algorithms, and given that you can select the sources now and effectively train it up on what you've got, yeah, probably. Although it just requires somebody to sit down and work on the Lua script to do it. It's not the most trivial of algorithms, and because the brush can change, the call to the brush being changed is basically every time you move the mouse, you may find you start to get some performance problems. That's why I think things like wave function collapse will be better off known as like a fill type operation. I've not done fills yet, and I've not done selections yet. Excuse me, I'm just gonna have a quick drink. Yeah, Lua is like super easy now. So the last episode, Londo, it's not that I've just recently discovered Sol and Sol 3, but it's super trivial to implement now in C++. In fact, it's laughably trivial. That's how wonderful it really is. A library done right. Yeah, I think wave function collapse is definitely a thing. It's something I get asked to make videos about all the time. So it might be a fun one to just sort of implement. Right, so let's carry on making our thing. So I don't want a sort of a big path to be our town. Let's cover everything with random grass. So we choose these 3 because that looks nice. We've got a flower up there as well. And I can actually choose grass from here as well. I'm guessing some of these are quite similar. Yeah, see how they're actually the same sprite. That's cheating game devs. And we will draw we will paint with a spray paint and a large brush. I choose the wrong one. Spray paint. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. It's not drawing from the 2 sources. It draws from the last selected source. Yeah, it doesn't. It's not that clever yet. So let's just turn that into a nice grassy meadow. There we go. So this is our starting point for placing our village. It's interesting because when I first started the Discord server here, Rust wasn't in its infancy. Don't forget, I started the Discord server in like 2018, something like that. It's quite a long time ago now. And there wasn't that many proponents of Rust. And over the years, everybody's going, Rust, Rust's the most important thing. But the thing at the start was really, it was the community that was the selling point behind Rust. Now, I don't program in Rust, and I'm not active in any of the Rust communities other than the small one on our Discord server. Certainly, our Rusties don't seem to be a problem at all. But there does seem to be a lot of anecdotal evidence suggesting it's not the most fun place to be anymore. That said, it's probably better than any of the C++ communities. So they're the most toxic, bile spewing, nightmare infused, horrible, horrible places. Blowfish Fugu. Greetings, friend of using Rust on Arch, by the way. Well, the OLC C++ community is just fine, but that's only because we're accommodating and we're silly as well. You can't join our server if you're not officially silly. Right, so I'm going to draw some paths and things. Now, I don't have any auto tiling facility at all at the moment, but these are going to be part of our floor. So this looks like, do we have just horizontal path, which is that? So why have I selected this in this manner? Oh, hang on. That one first, then that one, and then that one. I don't want to draw a random, I just want basic paint. Because if I select like this, I should be able to quite easily just draw a path, which is adorned on both sides, which is quite nice. And if I select these two, I'm guessing I can actually draw sort of a crossroads. Oh, hang on, I need to select the one in the middle as well, don't I? Draw a crossroads. Oh, slipped a bit there. And then I need to join them up, which I guess is the whole thing, really. We just sort of smack that in there. Yeah, so the crossroads, a little bit more beaten path, I think. Okay, that's quite nice. Let's repair this little error. Now, I don't have copy and paste facilities yet, so that's probably something that's fairly fundamental. Because it would be nice to just be able to sample the cell that's next to you and actually construct a brush out of that. So let's actually think of that. So construct brush out of currently edited map. So I could just select some cells to say, right, just repeat that around this location. Which would lead on to probably exactly the same implementation of copy and paste. And paste. And whilst we're thinking of copy and paste, I don't actually have any facilities to delete tiles either. Clone brush, yeah, I think that's kind of what we're just talking about there. Is it possible to 9-slice and be able to auto paint? Yes, for the third time tonight. Yes, we can do a 9-slice. That's actually built in already. We've got that facility. If we did an internal one, we could demonstrate that. Scratch buffer for custom. So yeah, actually, Magetsu, I think that's a great idea, and it's one I've thought about implementing in a slightly different way. The static tile sources at the moment are just this image with the ability to select, but I thought, wouldn't it be cool if these also had pre-made selections of things, totally optional to use? So, for example, if we wanted waterfall, I could just select waterfall from this list. Sorry, not waterfall, wishing well. Wishing well. I could just select wishing well from the list and then go and place it somewhere. So if I place this on the layer above, for example, I can place it like that. So I wouldn't say it was a scratch buffer as such. It's more sort of ready-made objects identified in here. So you don't have to keep carefully selecting things. So we could have a lamppost object, for example. So let's put in a lamppost here. So select, and that one. We were trying to tidy up that cell, weren't we? We never got that far. Let's just place this lamppost for the time being. Let's place it there. And we'll just go and repair that bit of floor with that one and that one. And that one. There we go. Auto tiling pen when 9 patch is selected. I don't really understand what that one means. You mean you can't do you can only do bounding rectangles with a 9 patch. You can't sort of do the inner curves being selected. So the it has to be outer edges, and it has to be a convex hull, basically, doesn't it? Anyway, we're editing multiple layers here. That's quite nice. Is there a weighted random fill? Like if you have 9 different grass tiles, being able to assign the different weights. Not deliberately, unless your tile map has multiple sort of blank green ones and occasionally, you know what I mean. You could select from the tile map. It's then implementing how is that handled. Perhaps let's compromise on that one. A better one would be to perhaps have a spray paint option with a density. So you could choose a single tile to spray paint, but instead of the whole area being sprayed by that tile, you selectively say only spray every 1 in 6 tiles drawn at random. That way you'd get the same effect, but it's a single dimension of tool to edit rather than having to specify probability distributions. So let's actually add that as a feature, because why not? That's an easy one too. That's low-hanging fruit. So spray paint tool with density function. Which basically means it can also have transparent tiles as part of its output. I apologise for the cough again. It's as you can see, it's a prolonged problem. It's not going away, this cough. Right, that's working okay. Let's try and build a bit of house then, because I've not really tried using this tile set. So have I got walls and things in this house? That looks like walls. So I don't want to just sort of copy the house. Let's start by taking this bit and going to walls. I'm going to start drawing a house here. So that's a few layers. We'll have a window. Why not? And we'll have a door. Oh, okay, let's go in there. And we'll need the end of the house. Nice, and that one's good. So what I'm liking, because this is actually sort of the first time I've really played with this in any realistic sense, is it's not slow, right? It's quite a nice way to sort of edit tiles, providing you know how these constructions work. In this instance, I don't know how this tile map actually works. So this is an apex, of course. But what if we don't have an apex? What happens? Ah, and that's quite interesting. I think can I unselect? Okay, so I can't deselect a particular cell. I can select them individually, but once I've got a selection, I can't turn it off. Okay, so that's interesting. So let's have a selection tool. So tile selection tool, unselect specific tile. Yeah, so at the moment I'm drawing on the walls layer. Right, so I don't know how you actually use that tile construction, because this is part of the problem, because I didn't develop this specific tile map. Understanding how it's expected to be used is a bit of a learning exercise, because there's even more bits of the roof down here is randomly sort of scattered and assorted. But let's have a go. Let's give it a go. We're accidentally going to draw a bit of lamppost into our application here. Let's draw that above the door as is kind of intended. And then we've got an apex there, but I presume there's a bit of apex with, well, the end of the roof. Yeah, how do I then sort of have additional roof here? So I guess I typically want something like that. And then the apex is probably those two. Let's steal up to there. Right, so we can go and put the roof on. But I want this to be a bit longer, so do I just take those middle... Oh, hang on, there's some edge tiles there that I missed. Okay, so that one is an edge, and edge. Let's go and pop this apex somewhere. Stick it up here for now. And we want this one. And then we want that one. And we'll just fill in that gap with another one of those. We'll have those two there. And I think we just want some more edges for the time being. There and there. Now, envisage in a few weeks, once we've started adding the geometry, that's potentially where we can start adding things like the collision maps with the scenery as well. Now, don't forget, this is not just a tile editor. It's not trying to compete with tile. The objective of the exercise is to come up with something where I can quickly and flexibly alter 2D data in an intuitive way. So major features to add yet is the ability to right-click on any work object and then export it in a variety of different manners. Oh, look, this is interesting. So we've got a discontinuity there with this particular tile map. Does that mean I have to have... You see, that's not a matching tile. So if I went with that apex, how do I get that to line up? Kind of, it's expecting to see. It's expecting to see the top of that log part there. So the other bit that I wanted to add was, I wanted to add a long roof section. Like an extension on the outer side of the building. So something like that. Oh, thank you, Johnny G. I appreciate that. If you were rendering this map in Engine, would you render each of the tiles separately? Yeah, probably. You'd render them as layers. It depends. So that's one of the abilities that you'll have. You can export it as one big image. You can export it as groups. You'd be able to export. It's up to you. It's all scriptable. Lots of windows. There's the roof cross-section pieces. Okay. First time chat from KSimsLK. Is this an editor you created? It is an editor I've created. Yeah. So in fact, that's the objective of my current live streams. Is we're working on this editor, and it's going to be more than just tiles eventually. But tiles is a nice graphical place to start, so it makes the streams a bit more interesting. Right. So how am I doing filling this in? Not very well is the answer. Let's just take that bit because that looks like it. Where does that fit? Does that fit there? Yeah, it kind of fits there, and that one fits there. But you see, we put that there. I need it to sort of collide. It's like this one here, but the other way round. So I wonder if they're anticipating that you use multiple layers to actually construct the roofs properly. And that looks like a roof crossing into another roof, doesn't it? Let's just take that bit. So if I put that there, or at least start with those three. Put that there. Okay, that's but you want that roof. Okay, so maybe they are providing this facility, and put that. Yeah, but they don't necessarily provide it for buildings of this particular shape and size. That's interesting. Because I haven't got a tile to put there. And they don't provide one. Okay, so the problem I would have is, let's say I put that there, it starts to eat into the frontage. So if we put the apex back, oh, hang on, what's this? Yeah, so that's eating into the wrong bit of roof, isn't it? That's okay. Yeah, definitely, it's not expecting to have sort of an L-shaped building. That is interesting. So we would need to bring forward that full apex, I think. That's good to know. But it would actually need the apex to be lower down. May you need to rotate a tile. Hang on, that's so very cool. Fachi177, thank you very much. You would need to move horizontal 1 or 2 tiles up. Yeah, it's a bit tricky, isn't it? A bit fiddly. You need to move the house 1 front tile lower, which these are things I can't currently do because I can't sort of select and move things. I don't have any selection tools yet. If you put the end of the wooden beam over a normal roof tile, may you need to rotate a tile. Right, that's an interesting debate. Let's talk about that one for a moment. Yes is the answer, because a lot of tile sets actually only have sort of one tile which can be used in different orientations. Should it just be a set of flags which allow us to sort of rotate the tile just in axis? I mean, of course, we can always sort of do cool stuff like that, but should we just have like mirror flips and axial rather than having arbitrary rotations? I think that makes sense, doesn't it? So let's think about having that as an option. Why am I hesitant? One, because it means we've got additional information for every single cell. But two, the drawing routines would have to accommodate it. That's fine, my drawing routines can, but perhaps the end user, mind you, if they're exporting it in the way they want, they could reject that information, they could form a new tile map. Okay, I agree. All right, so some way of rotating tiles. That's a good one to have in. Rotating, I think there's some tricks we can play with mirroring to actually just rotate as well. Ooh, mirroring. There we go. Mirroring tiles. Okay. Maybe it would be easier to make a T-shaped building. Possibly. See, I don't know what the limitations are of this tile set. These are one of the things I'm learning at the moment. And by fiddling about with it like this, it's great because certainly it looks like I could straight up do with an undo function. So I think that's got to happen. We've got to have some mechanism of doing this. So let's just note that down. So I think undo is becoming critical. As is delete, which I know we've got, which is a bit frustrating. We don't really have delete. So yeah, I don't know how successful we'll be at actually trying to build the house of our dreams here. Just out of curiosity, what would we do in this corner here? Do we have... Yeah, so it has actually given us sufficient tile. But look, it's expecting that to be... Is that even in line with that? If I stick that there... Right, so yeah, there are sort of intrinsic limitations on what the tile set can allow you to do. So if we do want that kind of edge, it's a different sort of edge. Interesting stuff. Yeah, what's that? That's a overhanging edge. Let's quickly create another layer as well. So if I did want to sort of fake a few of these things without having to manually construct everything all the time, we go to static tiles. What did you say it was? 128 by 128. And oh, very big tiles. Change you there. And this one to 64 by 64. This gives you sort of a get out of jail free card, because now I should be able to select this and paste this on top of sort of the existing infrastructure, which suddenly becomes a far easier way to do these things. I guess that's how that one's intended to work. Can you stretch across with the upper floor window tiles? Can I stretch across? Upper floor window tiles. Is it the one I've just done? That one? Don't know. Don't know what you're referring to there. Right. Some sort of pathing tool might be quite nice, because I think you do tend to draw lines. And yeah, getting them to auto tile is a bit fiddly. No, the main window on the front face. So this window here. Now you see this. It looks like this sprite set was certainly intended to have an additional layer for feature, like that, right? Yeah. Okay. Usability. Use the previously entered tile size and number of tiles when creating a new layer. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good shout. So remember, or yeah. Basically, clone last created static tile work object when making a new one. Can you create layers of different sizes? Yes, you can. Yeah. Is it necessary to store an array of sortable sprite arrays? Oh, hang on. Alter, how much chocolate have you had? I think it's necessary to store an array of sortable sprite arrays, each constituting a layer of a tile map, to be able to render a player sprite either in front or behind a tile map sprite depending on its Y position. I haven't found another way yet. Yeah, so for example, on this environment, you would always draw the character on the floor layer, right? Because you can't actually go behind the buildings ever in this particular setup. And you would have some sort of solid object. So anything that's not floor, and you draw the object, your character isn't usually drawn from the top left. They'll be drawn from some floor point, which might be halfway up the body, which allows you to do that overlap. It's very rare do you see that the character is actually also one tile in size. So you can see my chimney pot here, assuming that's a character. If we draw that at floor level, I don't think my brush works like that. Brush just sort of always draws on top. But if I draw that on floor level across here, as it's going across, right, so that's kind of the expected behavior. I see. I think I kind of see what your problem is. Right, so if on the front, what's the order you draw things in? Floor, then character's no good because then you'll ultimately draw the building. So you do floor, building, building, building. But how do you handle this scenario up here? Yeah, you need like I guess that's an interesting point, Alter. It's actually quite an interesting one. You need a degree of separation just based on the collision map of the environment. That is an interesting thing to think about. I've never really sort of thought about it on that level before. If you were to just draw things sequentially, what would the ordering be? Or you just let the Z buffer handle it all. Depends on your approach. But yeah, that's actually a good thing to think about. That if we added a layer that allowed us to just draw some sort of occlusion map. So let's add one. Add a static tile there. Let's duplicate that again. So 128 by 128, 64 by 64. Let's just, for the sake of argument, use this red. So what would be the solid locations on here is probably there, and there. Down here. Probably not around the door like that, and then up here. That's probably your collision map if you were doing it based on tiles for this particular building. So based on that collision map, you would then choose which features are elevated to a different layer. Now that might actually be an interesting tool. So we've not really got sort of layer to layer tools yet, which is probably something we should have, where you could automatically extract that sort of feature. So you could build a selection based on your sort of collision map like this, and then lift certain parts of the scenery automatically. Yeah, interesting to think about that actually. I tried rendering each map layer as a single image before and ran. Yeah, that's not going to work. It needs to be more dynamic than that. That would feel right to the player. They would walk past the building, and you get this nice little edge along the effect, because that's fine. The player would be rendered behind that, but all of the stuff that's not red would need to be rendered after you've drawn the player, except for the door. So that gets even more interesting. So it does start to get fascinating, doesn't it? I guess the original sort of RPG level designers really had to think all of this stuff through. What layer was things happening at? So is it necessary then in a tile world to have some sort of virtual player agent which is controllable? It's just a shape which is controllable and you can see how it behaves. I think that's actually a really nice idea. So some sort of virtual visibility agent. Like wizard controlled blob, which you can just move around the level to check that your layering is correct. Remember in Chrono Trigger, in one of the first buildings, you can't just sort everything by the y-axis. It's not that simple. Mate, I mean, okay, it kind of is, right? Yeah, I see what you're saying. So you would only draw from the top down as you're going. But I don't think it's actually that simple. Because the player can. Is it that simple? Does it work like that? Just sort everything by their y-axis. I'm not so sure. I think there are corner cases where that wouldn't work. Anyway, I like the idea of having a visibility agent for the operator to test this. Yeah, I like that. So we're going to have that. Uncoder21. Hello, what do we have here? We're building a editor of sorts to edit things. Let's get rid of this. We can get rid of the visibility of this last layer false, though. We can change that. And we've also got the... So if we change the visibility of our walls now, what kind of damage have we done? Let's go and fill that back in with some plants. So spray paint. Spray paint. Oh, I'm drawing on... Oh, dear. Oh, no. You know what's just happened, don't you? Because I had walls selected, I think I've just drawn over all the walls that we've just placed. Oh, is that a big usability faux pas? So if I bring walls back into play... True. Uh-oh. Yeah. Right. Okay, that we can't have. So if we've got a layer marked as invisible... it's desperately important that it can't be edited. Okay. I mean, this is why we're doing this tonight. This is where we're sort of experimenting with it from actually using it. I think the anchor point needs to be at the bottom of each sprite. So yeah, that's true. It does. Yeah. The bed's encouraged. Yes, you'll just be able to walk in between the pillow and the mattress. That was actually true of, well, I guess Secret of Mana. I mean, it's basically the same engine, right? So, yeah, interesting. Right, I didn't realise we've actually overrun by 10 minutes tonight. So that's actually been a really useful stream. Look at all these things, and this is stuff I'm going to sort of attack in my spare time. The one I'm most excited about looking at is that. Because that's some interesting code. Perhaps that could be an episode soon. We looked at the Lua scripts that have gone into doing these things. So let me show you the 9-patch one, because that's actually quite complicated. So I'll show you the Bresnan one. Again, you look at the staging, because you place the start of the line and the end of the line. They're all very similar for the shapes. But this is Bresnan's algorithm, a la Pixel Game Engine. Just reinterpreted into Lua. And it just worked straight away. It was very nice, that one. I was pleased with that. Circles. You know, circles are actually simpler to draw than lines. It's unusual. But there you are. There's some wonderful formula in there. And the 9-patch itself... the 9-patch was a pain. Before we finish, I'll explain why was it a pain. Right. So it's thoroughly documented, this as well. You think, oh, it's dead simple. Why is it not dead simple? Let me show you why. So it's not simple because Lua. So if I go to the 9-patch tool, and we've got a source here. Right, so we know what the 9-patch tool does. Right, it allows us to paint things with this border. But in order to understand what this is, I need to have known locations within that 9-patch. Now, let's say I selected things in this random haphazard order. Right? It still works. And this is a good demonstration because Lua doesn't have any concept of an array as such, really. It's all just key and value pairs in a table. So when you do this selection, it's just one gigantic hash map. It's stored in a completely random order. So in order to construct the 9-patch, I need to work out in this random cluster of cells which cell is which, so I can apply it appropriately to the 9-patch. And so the way that I'm doing that is I'm thoroughly abusing the y times width plus x to basically turn all of the 2D dimensions of these cells, which I know, into a 1D index. The problem is I don't know what the size of the map is, so I just use a really big number for the width and assume the user will never use a tile map that's thousands and thousands of tiles wide. That then allows me to sort them from top left to bottom right, because of course the index would increase. That becomes a standard one-dimensional sort at that point. And then I can, once I've sorted them, I know that they're ordering in that 9 off sort of location. Which one is top left, which one is bottom right, which one is middle, etc. I know the ordering then. And so actually most of the tricky part of the 9 patch was sorting the Lua tables based on some custom lambda-based sort in order to work out, because you can't sort the table so much, you sort the keys of the table into another table. Because remember, you can't really sort the keys. Everything is key and values. So you have, you can alter the relationship between the keys and the values, and it gets quite complicated anyway. And so that was required to do every time we start running the 9 patch. And at least then, once I understand how to do that, I've not added this draw function in because it didn't really make much sense to do it for this. Then at least I can just pick out the values that I know are what. So this is the northern cell, southern cell, western cell, eastern cell, and then the corners as necessary according to the rectangle. So yeah, a real pain. Uncoder, thank you. Yeah, these are quite different to the the YT videos, the YouTube videos, because there's just chaos and most of the chat shouting at me most of the time. So there we go. That was the 9 patch. Right, I'm definitely done for tonight. Thank you for those who have subscribed tonight. Thank you very much. Those that have followed, and welcome to the newcomers. Hope this cough gets better. Me too. I think it's come back since I started doing some very early morning runs in the cold. Right, until then, take care. I will see you all later. Bye-bye.